Just going to shut my,
Good. Just let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm just shutting my Outlook down because I realized just when I was talking to you, my Outlook popped up a couple of times. I'm just going to shut it down completely so it doesn't make any noises. There we go. We are now clear of distractions and noise. There we go. Right, I'm with you. Perfect.
All right. Welcome to the Whole Person Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Herrman, and today we are going to be talking with a coach / consultant, personal growth, wholeness, well-being, business, you name it. This guy can talk to you about it. His name is Phil Rose, and he owns Ignium Consulting. And I was recently on his podcast, and I got to tell you, he's a great guest to have on this show. Very well spoken. He is a friend from across the pond, and I want to say he has had a lot of success. He has worked with big name companies, including Rolls-Royce and Audi and some other similar businesses as well. He first, in 2005, set up a business that would help build strategies for executives and other types of businesses. And they were very successful at doing that. His purpose is to engage people and businesses to achieve their goals. So I want to welcome to the show my friend, Phil from across the pond. How are you?
Hey, Evan, I'm really good. Thank you. And I love that introduction. There's great energy in there. So thank you very much for having me on the Whole Person Podcast.
You bet. It is my pleasure. Well, just to start us off with, tell us in the audience a little bit about who you are and go into a little bit more detail about what you do.
Oh, great question. Thank you. So I am Phil Rose. And what I do is that I'm a coach, but I never tell people that. So I live in a little village just outside Oxford in England, beautiful countryside, about 50 miles north of London, 10 miles outside Oxford. And I've been living here, running my business for the last 15 years. And Evan, thank you. You mentioned about Ignium Consulting. Ignium is my second business. In fact, it's my third business because my first business failed. And I always say that with a bit of a smile and tongue in cheek. Because I created the business originally, it just didn't work. So I decided, hey, what better way than teaching other people how to do it differently? So I started life as an engineer, as you mentioned. And I always say to people, as an engineer, I was paid for the answers I gave because I was an aerospace engineer. And if I got the questions wrong, planes fell out of the sky. As a coach, I get paid for the questions I ask rather than the answers I give. And that's what I do. I ask questions. At the end of the day, that's what I'm all about, asking questions.
So, what is the most difficult questions people need to learn how to ask themselves?
Oh, well, that's probably one of the most difficult questions to answer myself as a coach. Do you know what? One of the most difficult questions is, be kind to yourself. How can I be kind to myself today? I think often people beat themselves up, and they beat themselves up for all sort of stuff going on for them. And sometimes they need to look at their life and say, okay, I'm grateful for what I've got. How can I recognize that in a state of gratitude? And you and I have talked about journals before. My view is, in your journal, ask yourself the question, what 3 things can I be grateful for today? The next question I always ask is, what will make today great? And then look at, okay, what is it I've got going for me right now that I believe in myself that I can take forward to the future? So I think there's some great questions there, just in terms of just reflecting, what can I be grateful for? What will make today great? And what have I got that will make the future special?
That's something that I work on and struggle through, is being consistent at journaling and writing my daily gratitudes down.
Yeah.
I do really good for about 4 or 5 days at a time. And then I take like 3 or 4 weeks off and I got to get back to it. There's this start, stop mentality that a lot of us face. What would be some advice on becoming a little bit more consistent in some of those habits to be more kind and gracious to yourself?
Yeah. And I love that word, kind and gracious yourself. And that is the first one, to stop beating yourself up for not doing it. But you've got to make it part of your life, make it part of your routine. And the only way you can do that is by understanding why. And I always ask that big question, why? And you asked me just now, what was the most difficult question? Sometimes the most difficult question is why. So asking yourself, what's the reason I do this? And I know for me, writing in my journal sets me up for the day. And actually now I feel lost if I don't do it. And I feel lost for a number of reasons, because actually it just gives me a view to say, this is how I want my day to be. But before I do that, I also have another routine. And often I talk about superstructures. So what's the superstructure you need to put in your life to create something? So one of my first superstructures, the moment I wake up, I say one thing for myself: thank you. And I put my feet on the floor and I feel good about the day. I don't dwell on any negative stuff. I just say, thank you. I'm awake. It's a beautiful day. And I then get out of bed. And I get up pretty early. By my standards, I'm not in the 5 a.m. club that a lot of people are. I get up at 10 to 6 every morning. My alarm goes off, much to my wife's displeasure sometimes. But I get up and I go through that structured routine. And my routine is, so there's some health things I do. I drink a glass of water and lemon every morning. I practice Pilates and stretching. Now, Evan, I'm at that age where I need to stretch every morning. If I don't, my back feels stiff, so I have to do it, but it becomes routine. And then I sit down and I write my journal. And I do it because my journal is beside the bed. It's got a pen beside in it, and it's one of the first things I see. And I think these superstructures are about how do we create things that make sure the routine is there. So most people get up and go through a structure every day of doing things. And it might be, we clean our teeth. And we know that our toothpaste and our toothbrush is beside the basin. Having my journal beside the bed means it's always there. And I reflect on it and I do it. And then I do it at the end of the day as well, religiously, to say, what is it I need to do to close my day out? Because I know that then gives me the view on how the day finishes. So I think that's the key thing I'd say, is just putting in place that structure, and it becomes a routine.
So basically what you're saying is you have bookends at the beginning and end of your day that help hold everything else together.
Love it. That is exactly it. I have bookends. Love that analogy. Yeah. I feel lost if I don't do it now. It's become a routine for me. The bookend is there, and I know, unless any, I don't beat myself up if I don't do it, but I know that that's the end of my day when I fill my journal. Then I can close the day contented.
Well, and if you look at the purpose of a bookend, is that it helps keep things upright.
Yeah.
It helps keep things in focus or organized so that you can, because I'm looking at my books in front of me here, and they're all nice and organized and neat and clear, but I have bookends.
Yeah.
And so what you're saying is that, these are your bookends, and you highly encourage people to try them. But if that doesn't work for them, what are some other types of bookends that people could apply in their life to help bring structure, grace, and just love to themselves?
Yeah, and actually that word love, I think, is key. I think it's self-compassion. Whenever we've flown, and I've not flown now for a long time because we can't at this moment, but whenever we fly, the hostess or the cabin crew come on and say, in the event of loss of oxygen or cabin air pressure, and a mask will drop down from the ceiling. And they don't say, put the mask on the person next to you before they put yours on. And they say that because actually they know that you've got to put your own on before you can save everyone else. And my view is you've got to be compassionate for yourself. Put your own oxygen mask on. So my journal is my oxygen mask. It's we talked about mindfulness as well in the past. People being mindful of what's going on around them. And I think being mindful for yourself is really key. So I'm going to start with the end in mind. You said about being gracious to themselves. I think give yourself a break, put your oxygen mask on, give yourself time to do these things. The other thing I say is, like putting my journal beside the bed, having that routine is there. So I do a lot of running. I like to keep fit. So I know that my kit has to be ready. So I have to physically trip over my kit when I get out of bed. It's beside the bed. I cannot not see it. And that's one of the things that drives it to me. I love running.
But I can run like the wind blows.
I love it. I love it. Hey, and that's what I do. At the moment, I can't run because I've got a knee injury. But when I do, I run and I put my kid on the floor. It's always there. I trip over it. My trainers are ready to go. And if I had self-lacing trainers like they did in, was it Back to the Future, I think, where it goes self-lacing training. If I had those, my trainers would land on my feet.
Right. Back to the Future. That's a rewind in time.
I love this.
So tell me, what made you go from engineering to consulting? Because that's a big leap.
Yeah. And it is a big leap. And I think I still love technical things, Evan. I love seeing how things work. So to me, as an aerospace engineer, which is why I ended up, I loved seeing how a jet engine would work, but I loved simplifying things. So a jet engine, and for any of your listeners who haven't flown for a while, or anybody who has flown, a jet engine is really simple. It sucks in air at the front, it squeezes it, it ignites it, and it blows it out the back. And I always say, suck, squeeze, bang, blow. And the reason I say that is it simplifies stuff. Yeah, that's what it does. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. So I look at it and say, okay, how can I simplify life? And I look at engineering and I say, okay, I like that. It's complex, but let's make it simple. And what I realize is that one of the biggest things, and this is a 30-year journey, so I'm going to squeeze it into a few seconds. And one of the biggest things that makes people tick is, understanding how things work. And the biggest thing that we don't know how it works is our brain. But the biggest thing we have with us as our potential is our brain. So as an engineer, we can look at something and we can say, okay, how do we build this? And everything around us has been created through the brain, through the intelligence, through the creativity of a person or people over time, everything. And as an engineer, I look at that and say, that's great. How do I help those people do even better? And what I realized some time ago is that, for any of us who have an Apple iPhone or an Android phone or any phone, in fact, or a computer, we get regular software updates. And what I realized early on is that we don't give ourselves that time for our own software update. So as an engineer, I used to work on engines. Now I work on your mind. And I give you the latest iOS upgrade so you can run a better software for where you are today. Marshall Goldsmith wrote a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And I realized a lot of people don't recognize that they need to do things differently sometimes. But they have all the tools themselves to one level, and then they need another view on it. So I've answered your question in a bit of a roundabout way. You asked me how to go from engineering to consulting. Actually, I went through a journey to recognize what is it I'm really passionate about. And I wanted to doing that passion for myself. And actually, simply as well, I realized that I enjoy working for myself because I wanted to be a master of my own destiny. Yeah. And that took me out of corporate and into one-man band on my own, doing it for myself. And I fell into consultancy and realized I had a passion for it.
So you said something in there that really caught my attention when you're talking about what engines do: suck, squeeze, bang, and blow.
Yeah.
For starters, that's funny. But there's so much truth to it and how it operates. But I'm also thinking about, okay, in life, it sucks sometimes. And then we have to embrace the suck. We have to squeeze it. And then when that happens, oftentimes we get an ignition, a spark, a push through the suck, through the squeeze. And then the blowing part is the momentum that comes from embracing the suck, squeezing it, and then it ignites, and then you get the momentum from that which sucked.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
And so, I don't know. It was just something that made me think a little deeper, I guess. I don't know.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that thing, and I haven't used that phrase for a long time. And there's two things come to me. I used to go learn that from Rolls-Royce many years ago, and that's been a piece of knowledge that sat in my mind for 30 years, and I haven't told many people about it. So I haven't talked to people about that for 10 years maybe. Oh, wow. But it's interesting how we can take that same words and apply it to what we do now, because we're all life sucks. Over this last year, we've been stuck in this COVID pandemic wherever we are in the world. It's been tough for everybody. We've not been able to travel. We've not been able to see our family. In the UK, we've been locked down. The government's told us we're not allowed out. at certain times. Okay, not extreme. We're not allowed to see friends. We're not allowed to see relatives. It sucks. We've all been squeezed financially. But there's certain things we can do. We can ignite our own passion. And the revelation that's just come to me, that word Ignium. So my business is called Ignium Consulting. Ignium means to ignite. Because I want to ignite people's passion for life and their business. And I know if you ignite something like a rocket, it will take off. And I want to bring that ignition to people, because then you get the biggest bang and hey, it will fly.
Right. So going back to what you're saying, developing software and updating to help people get to use their full potential.
Yeah.
And, rockets take the most amount of energy in fuel to lift off. Yeah. Once it's in outer space in orbit, it becomes fairly less difficult and strenuous to maneuver. Mm. And so a lot of the work comes from the beginning. So for people who might not actually have consulting at the moment, what are some tips that you would give people to help them learn how to upgrade their own software, their own thinking, their own, our personalities are not permanent. And I think so many times we get stuck in this idea that, well, this is just the way I am. Well, no, it's not. We grow.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. So a piece of my journey, which I didn't share with you, is I moved from engineering to consulting, and now I do more coaching. And I think this is the key that unlocks the journey. Because as a coach, I ask questions. As a consultant, I bring you the answer and say, Evan, if you want to change your life, do this, 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 and this. Follow these steps. Now, I don't know you well enough to prescribe that to you. It's a bit like you going to the doctor and the doctor saying, Evan, take these pills and your life will be good. Whereas as a coach, I talk to you about what's going on and I ask you questions. So the best way to upgrade your own software is to ask yourself, what's working? What's not working? What do I need help with? And that what do I need help with is the key bit, because often we don't have all the answers. We need to go outside. Now, as a coach, I often say, some people say to me, hey, at a real pure coaching, we do have all the answers. But guess what? We don't, because actually, as we've grown, things happen to us. We need to learn different things. So I carry 2 suitcases now. And in one suitcase, I have a whole load of consulting tools that will transform your life, transform your business. And in the other suitcase, I have my coaching toolkit. And I know if I just give you the consulting toolkit, you'll have to keep coming back to me for more. But as a coach, I can teach you to do it time and time again. The phrase give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish and he'll eat for his lifetime. So I need to coach you around how to upgrade your own software and how to think things differently. You're on YouTube, Evan, and we can go onto YouTube now and we can find anything we want. We can go to Google and we find the information. So the questions are not out of our control, out of our reach. They're all there. But sometimes we forget to go and look. Whereas having a coach beside you, the coach can ask you those questions that you've not thought about. They were there, but you've just not thought about them. So to answer your question about how to upgrade your own software, first of all, get a coach. But secondly, if you don't want to get a coach, just go and ask yourself those questions like, what do you want? Where do you want to be? What's going well? What's not going so well? How can I do it even better?
So let's take this one step further. That way people can learn how to do this for themselves. Let's pretend I am me and you're my brain. What question should you kind of already touched on it, but you're my brain, okay? And I need to upgrade my software. What question do I need to ask myself? And then I'll answer and we'll go through this together.
Okay. So what's working for you right now?
What's working for me is my consistency in the content that I'm creating.
Yeah. Okay. So I could ask you other questions. I can ask you a flip side of that question, which is what's not working for you at the moment?
What's not working is that the real estate market feels depressed.
Okay.
Which it is.
Yeah. And you and I talked about that, and I think that's it. It is depressed. That's a fact. So the question is, we could actually look at the what's going well and what could be improved, what's not working so well, and we could go through that. And if you aren't keeping asking your question, what's not working so well and what's working well, you come up with a list and do an inventory of where you are. And the key is to say, okay, What is it I need to know to change? And then ask yourself the question, what question do I need to ask myself? And sometimes we don't know the question. So I often say, if you were working on your own, I'd say, who else would know the answer? Or if you did know the answer, what would it be? Because then it gives you a different perspective on things. There's a great, yeah.
Well, since we're talking, the one thing that I'm really good at is consistency in my podcast. So what's not going so well is the market. So where can I show up more consistent in the market that's not doing good?
Yeah.
So I'm taking what is working well and applying it to an area that's not working so well.
Yeah.
I'm not showing up in real estate. I am. It's just what areas can I show up differently?
Yeah.
To get in front of people, to build relationships.
Yeah. And also ask yourself that question, right? If the real estate market is depressed at the moment, if there's things going on there, what can you do to ignite the real estate market for yourself? What can you do? What can you positively do at this moment? Yes, it's depressed. That's a fact. So what can you do differently? How can you sow the seeds now so you reap them in the autumn?
Right. I would say the biggest thing, which is always in real estate, is just developing relationships. That's something that I've always focused on doing. And you can do that in different ways. The other thing that you can do, and this is one thing I've taken a step back more so in, is calling expired listings. There's just not a lot, there's not as much to call.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean that you can't call what's out there.
Yeah. And I think there's a key thing there, isn't it? You said, if I was your brain, what would the questions I ask? And we can go down lots of questions there, but I think the key thing is, what do you do well and what do you need to improve at? And sometimes we don't know what we don't know. And that's a really strange thing. We don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And often we're blind to things because I can see you and I see you the way you are, but you can't see you. You can only see what you perceive you to be. But in fact, I can only see you what I perceive you to be as well. So the key is to say, okay, what do I know for sure? And what's a story I'm telling myself? And sometimes we have to go through that question with ourselves to work out what stories am I telling myself? And sometimes we tell ourselves bad stories and sometimes we tell ourselves good stories.
Right.
So what's the bad you need to let go of? And that's a judgmental thing, saying bad. But what's the bits you need to let go of that will help you shift and move forwards? Well,
I think realistically, in my scenario, I can't control the real estate market. And so understanding that, my expectations have to probably change a little bit in the context that need to be more gracious with myself.
Okay.
Because I'm used to a specific level of production, and there's things that I can do to make sure I get back to that despite everything, but also understand that, the last time the market was this bad was in 2008, 2009, when I wasn't even in real estate. So this is also one of the first depressed times. Now, some of you are like, well, what? Real estate's selling. It's amazing. Look, the market is 40 to 60% down in the US, depending on where you're at. And so, yes, if you're selling a house, you're going to make buku bucks because there's way more buyers than houses on market. In addition to that, one reason why we're seeing a lot of inflation in general, but then more people are buying new builds because there's not enough existing homes on market, which then also creates. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, which also creates other things, but that's a different story, and I want to get back to.
Well, I was going to come back to it, and I've just Googled something which I wanted to quote to you actually, and it's the Serenity Prayer.
Oh yeah.
And I think this is key. And I Googled it because I wanted to get the words right. And if you haven't heard the Serenity Prayer, it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so often we forget that.
You know, I want to rewind and I want you to say that again. You ready? Read it
Got
to
it.
us again.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
That's a holy religious moment right there. It really is.
And do you know what, Evan? I got a little bit of tear in my eye when I said that. Because I think sometimes we forget those things and we get wrapped up in the turmoil of the world and we don't think about the things that are important.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think sometimes we need to slow down and just reflect and come back to that point about what have we got that we're grateful for, and stop chasing the money and chase what's important and what's right to us.
And isn't that ironic how COVID has kind of done that? It's made us shift where we haven't been so busy.
Yeah.
It's made us focus on our family, on our neighbors.
Yeah.
I know some people have been so terrified that they don't even come out of their house even right now.
Yeah.
But we needed a slowdown.
Yeah, we did.
We needed a refocus.
Yeah.
Too bad it took a pandemic to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of good that is coming out of it. I get to spend more time with my wife than I've ever before. She's working from home. I work from home. So how do we embrace the suck?
And actually, we have to realize that the bang will come back again. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we're in a cycle. And when we recognize that we're just a blip on that cycle, and what's happened before will happen again, the economy will go up, the economy will go down. Yeah, it reminds me of the Baz Luhrmann song that came out many years ago. And it said in there, economy will go up, economy will go down, politicians will lie. And at the end of the day, it's recognizing what's truthful to you. And there are only certain truthfuls. And in that song, he said, wear sunscreen, because that's what we can take control of. So sometimes we need to just sit back and say, okay, it may seem really terrible where we are right now. There's other people suffering worse than I am, but that doesn't negate my feelings. But I just need to sit back and say, okay, what can I do to support myself? And when we reflect on, come back to that gratitude. What 3 things am I grateful for? What can I do today to make today great? How do I just keep putting one step in front of the other? Because I know that ultimately that journey will progress and we'll come out of this eventually. But you have to have a bit of faith in that. And faith is a strange word for me to say, but actually you do need a bit of faith.
Yeah. For those of us that are we're all going through this. What do we need to do to position ourselves now so that when things go back to somewhat normal, that we can thrive moving forward and even thrive right now and have a healthy mindset?
Yeah. So I love that word thrive, because we all have the ability to thrive and we all have choices in life. And sometimes we don't recognize the gifts we have. And one of those gifts is we can make choices. But sometimes we get clouded and that causes problems. Mm-hmm. So I've reached that age in life, Evan, where I've started gardening. And I say that with tongue in cheek, because I'm sure it happens to other people and some people haven't earlier. But I love growing my vegetables. And, I planted carrots, I planted lettuces the other day. We've got rhubarb growing, we've got strawberries growing, we've got raspberries growing. And it's great to do. But sometimes the weeds appear. So I know I've had to put the seeds in the garden. And those seeds will come out at some stage, but not all of them. So I've had to plant lots of them, but I'll get some crop. But I have to water the earth. I have to till the soil. I have to remove the weeds. And ultimately, I'll reap the reward. So my view is actually to thrive, you've got to first clear the weeds and prepare the ground. And this pandemic, I think, has taught me specifically that sometimes, that slowing down is to say, okay, what weeds have got into my mind? What's poisoning the earth that I'm working with? And then I can come out clearly the other way. I don't have all the answers. But I think if we start doing that, we can then sow the seeds of what we want in the future.
Yeah.
And then we will reap the reward at some stage.
Yeah, it's getting clarity and focus and not letting things become distracting. So, you're saying something that I'll share a weed in my life that was there. I used to listen to politics daily for a very long time. And this year, I just decided I'm done. Now, I still pay attention to some things just so I know what's going on, but I don't spend so much time being influenced by it. And the liberation in my heart and mind that happened was great. But then it also allowed me to have a better clarity of focus on more important things that I can control. Going back to the serenity prayer, I can't control politics. So why get bent out of shape over it? Yeah. I can vote. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned it. So today in the UK is election day for our local elections. And, it's an interesting place in the UK at the moment with lots of things going on. But I always say to my kids, my daughter turned 18 in December. So in the UK, you can legally vote from the age of 18. So she went to vote for the first time today. She was 18 5 months ago. And she said to me, do I have to do it? And I said to her, yes, you do. Because you have that power to do that. And we live in a democratic country that's one of your rights. And in some ways, it's almost an obligation.
Yeah.
Because we can't complain about what we're given if we don't look to how to influence it in the first place. So I think we have that power within us to do that. And it's funny, isn't it? I almost get quite emotional saying that then. Partly because my daughter's 18. But partly when I realise, the power of what we have within us in democratic countries to influence our future. And we may not like the result, but at least we can put our mark on the paper to say this is what we want. And I don't know, that was the question. I don't know I'm going down that route, but hey, that's what came to my mind when you said that.
So how can we put that mark on our paper in our lives?
Yeah. And how do you put the mark on the paper in our lives? Do you know what? That's an interesting point. And I think that comes back to that word choice. We have options about who we are, what we do, how we show up. And you used that word positioning earlier. You said, how do we position ourselves as we go and thrive? I think we have to recognize in life that it's up to us. Realistically, no one else is looking out for us. Right. As much as we think our mother is, our mother probably still is, she's the person who really cares about you still. Your father does as well, hopefully. But actually, at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for what we do. And we have to look around us and understand, what are the key things for us? And you and I have talked before about family, friends, faith, fun, fitness, and finances. Those are the 6 big Fs that we all work on. And I often don't include finances, but I put it in there because, at the end of the day, when we're laying on our deathbed, we look back at what we've created. Those are the things that matter to us. And the top of that list, friendships, fun, and family, I would say. And you can probably take fun out there because they come from friendships and family. So I think actually one of the things we can put our X on the paper and say, okay, what do we want? What's the thing we're voting for? And I think personally we need to vote for our own futures and look at what do we want out of things. Because if we don't have a vision, if you don't have a dream, what are you running towards? You're just running to stand still. So sometimes you need to focus on what is it you really want in life? And if I was to ask you that question now, what's the answer? What do you really want?
Peace.
That's pretty big. Peace for who?
Peace of heart and mind.
And how will you get that?
For me, it's knowing that the faith, family, finances, friendship, fitness, and fun are all well taken care of.
Yeah.
And that there is no lack.
Yeah. And I love you said about well taken care of, because, I have this picture of a wheel, and a well-balanced life is like a wheel. We know when a car wheel's out of balance because it vibrates the steering wheel. And actually, when you're out of balance in any one area of your life, you will feel that vibration. And we talk about life and vibration. Actually, negative vibration, that affects us all. And sometimes we need to work out what is it we want in those areas. So when you say peace, I think that's a great thing to focus on. But then work out is, what is it you need to do right now to get you on that journey to get there? Because if you want it, actually, you can have it right now. But you need to understand what is it you need to do personally to get yourself into that state of peace.
The other thing too, like I want those areas well taken care of.
Yeah.
Financially, where there's no lack, no need, and as if it can be almost on autopilot in some of those areas where it's just running smooth. But the reality of peace is that true peace is not circumstantial. True peace is in spite of circumstances.
Yeah.
And so what I just said is, I want peace and this is what it would take to get it. But that wouldn't even be true peace. True peace would be in spite of circumstances.
Yeah. And actually, when you think about that, at the end of the day, the only thing we can control is what's inside us.
Yeah.
If we're externally motivated, we're always going to be battered by the latest winds. But actually, when we have that internal frame of reference, we can say, okay, what is it I need to do? And actually collect that peace for yourself and say, I'm at peace with life. I'm happy with the decisions I made. I'm happy with who I am. And I think some people, lots of people, are in turmoil internally because they're always looking for something else. They're always running for something else. They're always looking for the next best thing. And there's a lot to be said for just working out what is it you've got today that you can be grateful for. There's a great book I've got on my bookshelf up there by a guy called Paul Coelho, and it's called The Alchemist. And it's a story of a boy who goes in search of something. And he goes off exploring, and ultimately he comes back to the place he started. And he realizes he had it all along. And often I think people don't recognize that actually we've got it inside us, whatever it might be. And if we go out externally looking for it, we're just looking for external validation. But it's only us can say, you've got it or you haven't.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when we look ourselves in the mirror and say, do you like what you see? And only you know the answer to that. That's, yeah. It's funny, I get emotional when I talk about that. It was interesting because I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think a lot of people don't recognize what they've got already.
Right.
And that comes back to that gratitude.
Through this process of interviewing people, I like to ask them the same 3 questions as we come to a close. And the first question is, what brings you peace?
That's a really good question. What brings me peace? And it's interesting, having said what I've said just now about, internally referenced, what brings me peace is being with my family. Being with, putting all the business aside, I love doing what I do as a coach. And I chose to be a coach because it's something I know I can bring my passion to the world, and I can bring a skill I've got to the world. And it's something I know I can do when I'm 95 if I choose to. 45 years' time, I'd love to be able to sit and coach somebody. But actually, I think what brings me peace actually at the moment is my family, having them around me, and in some ways, seeing them have pleasure and joy and fun. And I think you get that more as if you're a parent, I think you pick up that more as you go on. That it's not about me; it's about the people I can touch and create and inspire.
What, in terms of negative self-talk, what are you currently struggling with?
Yeah. Oh, what am I currently struggling with? That's a really good question, actually. And in some ways, it's caught me slightly off guard, because I'm thinking, what am I struggling with? And I think I coach myself really well. I have a number of different coaches. So I had a coaching session this morning with my coaching supervisor, who asked me questions around my coaching itself and how I can better show up for people. And then I work with some other coaches to help me as well. And I think that the key for me sometimes, which may seem strange, is actually confidence and belief in my own abilities. I know I'm good at what I do, but like everyone, I doubt it sometimes. And I always think I'm going to get found out. And that seems really strange. I'm really skilled at what I do, and I've been through lots of training. But I always think, what if I'm not good enough? How do I change that? So I have to really talk myself into saying, do you know what? I can do this. So I think that's the thing that recurs for me occasionally. What if I'm not good enough?
What would you say is the best decision you've ever made? It can't be God, and it can't be your spouse.
I was going to say marrying my wife. Best decision I've ever made. There's so many good decisions I've made. I look back on life and think every decision I've made has been a good one, because I've learned a lesson from it one way or the other. And that's a bit of a cop-out answer.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, every decision, whether it's, there's no such thing as a bad decision. It was the decision made at that time, which is the right thing to do. But I think actually for me, training to be a coach was a great decision, because I see so many people out there that I can inspire. And I use the word inspire because my purpose is just to inspire people to step up and take action, inspire people to be the person they really are, inspire people to realize they've got more to them than they ever thought, inspire people to think or to believe they've got choices. So I think actually my best decision was choosing to become a coach in 2008. And it took me a while on that journey, because I used to think it felt really real passive business. And I thought, how am I going to make money as a coach? But actually I realized that what I do is bringing my skill to the world so I can change people's lives. Because I know every life I change will lead to a better world in the future. And that may seem very grand, but actually, do you know, I know I can do it. Even if I just touch 3 lives and help them step out and do something different, my job is done.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Good question.
You bet. Well, Phil, we're here at the end, and I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come on to the show. Do you hear that? Did you hear that? You don't hear that?
No.
It's the applause. But seriously, I'm so grateful that you came onto the show, and just the depth that you brought today, been extremely grateful for. Where can people find more out about you?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. And Evan, I've really enjoyed it as well. It's been a great conversation, and I'd love to do it again because I think there's so much more we could talk about. So I'm going to throw the offer out there. If we want to talk again, happy to do it again. It'd be great. Yeah. So where can people find me? So you can find me in the UK. If you're ever visiting UK, find me near Oxford. Look me up, Phil Rose. There's a few of us around, but I'm the only Phil Rose in Oxford. But less flippantly, you can find me at Phil, PHIL, at Ignium Consult, IGNIUM Consult.com, Phil at igniumconsult.com. You can check me out on our igniumconsult.com website, and we've got a Spark tank on there, which is full of ideas to spark your imaginations. And if those ideas can give you the bang you look for, that's what you need. You can find me on LinkedIn, Coach Phil Rose. I have a Facebook group called Building Better Businesses. And I'm occasionally on Instagram, and you can find me on Instagram at Phil Runs UK, which I thought was apt when I think I don't run the UK, but Phil Runs UK is my Instagram. So I'm all over that if you want to find me, but thank you.
That's awesome. Well, Phil, thank you so much for coming in today. Now, as we're kicking things out here, tell us one fun fact about yourself that not many people know.
So I'm going to tell you something which actually a lot of people know, but not a lot of people recognize in the States. So I am a Guinness World Record holder. I raised a lot of money for charity over the years, and I raised specifically for a children's cancer charity in the UK. And I realized that I've got a gift at running. And I realized that people wouldn't give me money for running because they knew I could do it. So I had to put fancy dress on. So in 2019, I achieved a Guinness World Record as the fastest astronomical body to run the marathon. I dressed up as the sun and ran the London Marathon dressed up in a sun costume to try and raise some money. So if you ever buy the Guinness Book of Records, you will find me in there with the astronomical body, which I'm actually just going to show Evan a picture of right now, so you can see me there.
That's awesome.
That is me.
And so how did that become a Guinness record? That you did it as the sun?
I did it as it. So that costume I'm showing Evan now is the sun. I had to develop it. It's a big ball with sun-like things on the side of it. I was running the London Marathon, wanted to raise more money, and I thought, what can I do differently? So the year before, I ran dressed up as a character called Little Miss Sunshine. And I figured Little Miss Sunshine was a great one, but I entered the marathon to run the world record as the fastest Little Miss Sunshine, but they cast me as a cartoon character. And the fastest record for a cartoon character was something like 2 hours and 41 minutes. And I'm a good runner, but I'm not that fast. So I looked at what else could I do, and I realized there was no record for someone running dressed up as the sun. So I approached the Guinness World Record and said, can I do it? They said, yes, if you got the costume right. So over a year, I developed this costume, applied the Guinness World Records, and ran it on the second hottest London Marathon ever, dressed as the sun in 3 hours, 52 minutes, and 40 seconds.
Wow. That's awesome.
Love it. Great question. Yes.
That is awesome. So what I'll do then is I'll dress up as a snake and I'll slither and I'll go for the slowest record.
I love that. Yeah. The slithering snake through the marathon. Right. Perfect.
No, I'll do the worm the entire
You have to get your breakdancing out. You don't remember breakdancing. You're too young for that.
I totally know what breakdancing is. Come on, I can beatbox here.
Breakdancing competition.
I got some thug in me.
Love it.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Evan, thank you.
Take care.